This is the Mike LiPetri Show. We have a great episode today. Pete DISILVIO is joining us,
Very
attorney
excited.
and author of his Substack, soon-to-be world-renowned Substack, Social Media at Law. How do they find you? Where do they go?
You can go to www.socialmediaatlaw.com, and then I'm Peter F. DISILVIO on every social media platform you can imagine.
I love it. Peter F. DISILVIO. And then you have also on Instagram, Social Media at Law, right?
Yes. There's also Social Media at Law on Instagram. We don't have a YouTube yet. Maybe I will after this. I'll have some nice video clips.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe something like that. But yeah, just if you go to socialmediaatlaw.com, you can find all the writing I'm doing. With some sick merch.
Merch? You got some merch?
I got merch, of course. You gotta have merch. I got a TeePublic store and everything.
I love that.
I got like $4 a shirt, but we take what we get.
That's what people might be buying now.
Right.
They're gonna see this. And
Exactly.
like, I want some Pete. I want Pete's merch.
Well, I appreciate that. Where do I get my Mike LiPetri merch? That's my question.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, baby.
That's it. That's it. I want to just click. It just says The Honorable. That's it. It's beautiful.
What made you want to start this? Like, Pete, I've been so interested. You had a great article, which we're going to really break down, which is why is curtailing Chinese technological influence so important, and especially during this time period when you're seeing the advent of TikTok, social media, the algorithms, what China's doing against the United States, how they're having Chinese espionage. I talked about it in my monologue just a few episodes ago about how we caught this secret police in New York City, and you're somebody that has just been on it. You've been researching, you've been really analyzing what's been going on. What made you want to even do this? And for how long have you been doing it and growing it and building on it? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I started in social media back in 2009, in the long ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is you and Zuckerberg?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like Zuckerberg started. I was like, that guy's cool. I'm not going to make any money off him. I'm just going to watch.
Yeah.
And so, 2009, I started doing it professionally back when it was Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube.
That's right.
That's
right. MySpace and YouTube with like no ads.
Right.
By the way.
Right. It was the golden age of YouTube.
Golden age of
YouTube. No YouTube Red. None of that. It's just straight up video making. And so I've been doing social media that entire time. Ever since then, I had my own company for a while where I did social media consulting. And then on top of that, I went to law school, became a lawyer. I've been a lawyer now for 7-8 years, whatever it is. And that intersection of social media and law, there's like no one there. And so I wanted to grow the two areas I love and write about them and research them. And the way I know how to learn is to do exactly that, writing and researching and then putting it out there for the world to see.
And then you've just been growing social media at law.
Yeah.
With all these different articles. And now we've come into, have you been seeing like over these years, China's influence, or did that really come to roost with TikTok, or did you see it beforehand?
So I saw it in other places, but I don't think I appreciated it as much until it hit the social media space, because you have things like they have been stealing our intellectual property in a serious, systematic way for 20 years. And
that's what China was notorious for,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. But the way they've upticked in the last 20 years, and this was something I wrote about in that very article you so nicely cited, just as an example, our solar panel industry, they undercut us. They stole our technology. They got American companies to go over there, and in exchange for having plants there or selling there, they had to give up some of their IP. They recreated our tech. They subsidized their companies. They undersold us. They drove our companies out of business, and now they basically control solar panels on this planet. And
wow. How long? When was this happen?
This is only over the last decade.
This is what they did.
They have basically shoved us out of solar panels.
So it's bait and switch.
Yeah, exactly that.
Wow.
And so
what scumbags.
I know, right? And so I've been watching all this stuff, and then all of a sudden TikTok shows up, and I'm like, oh, a new social media platform.
Yep.
I need to study this. And the more I studied it, the more I did not like it. It is, and at first it started off with just like the little things. Like, for example, TikTok's algorithm is one of the most opaque that we've seen. Like, we have no idea what's going on.
Zero.
It's highly addictive because of how quickly it feeds us, feeds you content, how easy it is to swipe up. And so that right there was terrifying to me. Primarily my social media consulting, I've done business also, but it's primarily politicians. And so I'm like, I don't know if I want to put a politician on this. I don't know if I like these like short little like hits. And then more and more came out about it. Again, the highly addictive nature. the way they're manipulating their algorithms. The fact that was the big thing when it came out, what they're doing with our data. That's what really scared me. So,
I don't know if many people,
Yeah.
and I want to break this down. So before we go into all what you've written, I want to break down the algorithm and what is it, how does it work, and specifically, how is it affecting our children's brains?
Yes. Okay. So algorithms in general are basically big mathematical equations that do something, right? So like for social media, algorithms are used to feed you the content that's going to keep you on the platform.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, it's not just TikTok. Everybody does it.
Right.
There was a time when when Facebook started, or early MySpace or early YouTube, where when you logged on, what did you see? You saw the most recent videos. And as time got on, they've developed these algorithms, made them better and better to feed you stuff that's going to keep you on the site.
And that's the rabbit hole that you just get in.
Exactly. 1 minute you're on YouTube and you're like, I want to see how to install a fence. 20 minutes later, you're learning about Otto von Bismarck. Like and you're like, how did I get here? I don't know. And most platforms, it's benign. Like it really is just trying to create an addiction. It wants you there.
Right.
But the TikTok algorithm, at least in my opinion, because it's a Chinese-controlled company. For those of you who don't know, they're communist. They have a great deal of control.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Great deal of control over their companies. There's former members of the Chinese military who are on the board of ByteDance, who are directly connected to it. It's the parent company of TikTok.
Right. I wanted to explain that. What is ByteDance?
They are the parent company. The way that Alphabet is the parent company of Google and Meta technically owns Facebook.
Right.
ByteDance owns TikTok.
Okay.
So their algorithm, this mathematical formula that's feeding you what'll keep you there, theirs is just more addictive. And so especially with kids, it's making them really want to stay on it a lot, get angry when they're not on it. There's all these accusations about it having a detrimental effect on mental health. Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen this a lot. We've seen these accusations towards Facebook. We've seen these accusations towards Instagram, especially with young girls and their body images. But on TikTok, it seems to be hyper. It seems to be so much more. One example is TikTok ticks.
What is that?
TikTok ticks is this phenomenon where kids are developing ticks because they are following people on TikTok who either have ticks. I'm talking like they click or something. I don't want to be offensive to anybody with disorder or anything, but there are people on TikTok either faking ticks or actually showing real like clicking and things like that. Kids start
mimicking
it, imitating, and the next thing you know,
they got it.
They've got it. And
it's like contagion.
Exactly. It's a social contagion, and that's what's so dangerous about it.
Now let's also break it down. You're speaking about the parent companies with ByteDance versus Alphabet.
Right.
The difference is though is Alphabet is a United States corporation.
Correct.
While ByteDance is a Chinese corporation. Now
Correct.
my understanding is that China mandates its businesses that are Chinese corporations must provide information or whatever data China requests to the government. Meanwhile, the United States government is not able to mandate said information. Is that true? Is that accurate?
That's basically it. Yeah, we actually the American, I don't believe the title is CEO, but the American head of ByteDance recently testified before Congress just a couple of weeks ago now, maybe a few months ago now, but definitely this year, last 8 or so weeks, would not say categorically that the Chinese Communist Party, that the government of China is not accessing Americans' data. He danced around it. He bobbed and weaved. He looked like Ali versus Foreman, like he's in the corner and he's just moving his head around. And congressmen are like, all right, so you're saying they don't have it, right? And he's like, well, maybe one of these days we'll address how that happened. And it's like, what are you doing? Like it's very clear that there is something going on here. And when you look at it in terms of the larger issue of what China is doing, the larger way that they're trying to undercut the Western liberal order of the last 100 years. And I don't mean liberal as in like the liberals of now.
Yeah, Western democracy.
Precisely that. The thing that has been the dominant power on this planet, the dominant model for 100 years, the way they're trying to undercut it. And you start looking at all these pieces together, it gets scarier and scarier.
How does social media, though, undercut Western democracy?
Okay, well, first of all, let's go back to the algorithm. Perfect example.
Okay.
All they have to do is weigh heavier things that are more critical of the United States, or pick your Western democracy, Canada, whatever, and up it and make that more prevalent on the platform. I mean, we look at 2016, right? So the Russians tried to interfere in the 2016 election. Did they actually have an effect? Did they actually sway anything? I'm not even going to argue about it right now. Doesn't matter. That's what they were trying to do, right? They're trying to use these algorithms against American citizens, right? There's all these stories where they were trying to organize a Black Lives Matter protest across the street from a Blue Lives Matter protest.
Okay.
Working both sides. But they were going with again, trying to use an American company, an American algorithm that is, by and large, doing these things unintentionally. Facebook's not trying to take a side. Oh, well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
But Facebook's algorithm is just trying to make money. It's just trying to keep you engaged on the platform. But China can use their algorithm, use TikTok, and say, okay, we want the maximum amount of Americans ticked off. We want the maximum amount of Americans to not trust their government. We want the maximum amount of Americans to not trust capitalism, to feel like capitalism is failing. And that's why you see these movements like, anti-work and these so-called work reform programs that are more radical. At least that's would be my argument. You're seeing more and more of this content getting pushed, and it's having a greater and greater effect.
Yeah, you're seeing a larger support among the Gen Z specifically,
Right.
which is in that 16 to 25 range, I believe, which is obviously the peak TikTok focus, and that's the peak TikTok consumer. You're seeing a larger majority of Gen Z, or I shouldn't say large plurality of Gen Z supporting socialism.
Right.
And that is obviously in the interest of the People's Republic of China.
Right, absolutely.
And it's interesting to see that. So it's becoming, in essence, a propagandist machine for the Chinese Communist government.
The most powerful propaganda tool in the history of this planet. That's what it is. Social media can be that by accident, or at least by taking advantage of the design. But TikTok, I believe, does it on purpose. They are weighing the scales on behalf of what China believes the world should be. And then another aspect of it, and this is to me an even more terrifying thing, because at least with the algorithm, if we teach our kids and we have proper education, proper educational reform, and proper civics, at least we can immunize them a little bit, right? But you know what you can immunize people against? Having their data stolen and manipulated. Most social media platforms send your data when you use their platform to 2 or 3 different locations. They send it to like their main office, their advertising company, if their advertising company split off, and usually somewhere to back it up, right? Like the Iron Mountain, which is like a government backup, but something like that for their own data. TikTok is sending your data to 13 different sites, and we don't know where they are. We don't know what they are. And when you have a government in China that has a social credit score system on their people, they're treating it like those old video games where you can make decisions and does your character come out a good guy or a bad guy? That's how they're treating people. So they're taking our data from our phones, and they could be using it to rank us in ways that maybe it's like who's more pliable to Chinese control versus who's not. Another example, and I gave this example to a very close friend of mine recently, because he's like, well, I don't have, TikTok on my phone. My kid has it, but my kid's 10. What does it matter? Well, your kid's on your Wi-Fi, isn't he? Okay, yeah, he is. I'm like, okay. I'm not saying my friend's having financial trouble. Let's say my friend's having financial trouble, and he's going on Google every day, and he's Googling, like, debt consolidation. Well, that TikTok app could be reading the data. We don't even know all the data it's pulling. It could be pulling information right through your router into it, sending it back. My friend doesn't work for government, but let's say he did. And one day the Chinese come knocking, hey, we'll give you $15,000. All you got to do is put this flash drive in your computer at work. That's it. That's all.
They can access through the app. The app allows you to invade into the phone, and then from there into the
We don't know.
Wow.
That's
the problem.
There have been reports of people's phones where the people have TikTok installed and they're not using it, and they go to check on their data, and the TikTok app is using the most data. And it's like, but why? I'm not using it for anything.
Interesting. How do you find something like that out to see the data?
Yeah, if you go if you're on an iPhone, I only know iPhones, I'm sorry. But if you go into your iPhone, you can see which apps are using which data in your settings, and you can see it right there.
Just scroll down from settings.
Yeah.
Wow. And so people can see if they're not on TikTok, but they have it downloaded and whatnot,
Right.
and if it's using that data, that means basically the app is what, actively collecting?
It could be, yeah. Like, here's a perfect example. Here's something that most people understand easily when I tell it to them. Your location services.
Okay.
Everyone knows, like on an iPhone, you get that little arrow in the top corner nowadays. Didn't used to be, but you get a little arrow in the top, and that means your location services are on.
Like when I use my Google Maps.
Precisely that.
Okay.
Okay? But there are a lot of apps you can use that will take your location data. Even though it's like, why does McDonald's is a bad choice because you have you want to know if you're near their McDonald's.
Right.
But like, why do some of these apps need our location services? It's because they're trying to figure out our shopping habits and using it to sell us things. Well, the Chinese could easily be pulling data from these apps to try to figure out ways to manipulate Americans. That's what the FBI director was concerned about. That's what various members of Congress have been concerned about. That's one of the things that the state legislature of Montana recently referenced as to why they are banning TikTok in their state, or at least from app stores in their state.
What was the FBI director? What was some of his concerns when he spoke?
There was the concern of the spying, the kind of things I was mentioning earlier with manipulating people and finding out data on individuals and using that to pressure them. Like, I don't know if Ashley Madison is still a website. I remember hearing about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. For anyone who doesn't know, Ashley Madison was a site for people who are in relationships or people who want to break up relationships, join.
Yeah, have an affair, right?
Right.
All affair-oriented.
Precisely.
And then what they leaked all the names, right?
Yes, which I thought was hilarious.
That's
However,
karma, man.
Yeah, that is.
That's karma.
But like, imagine TikTok. All the TikTok knows is you have Ashley Madison on your phone. Let's say that's all they know. Let's give them the absolute bare minimum. They know that there's Ashley Madison on your phone and you're a government official. And they come to you and they go, hey, guess what? We know you've been on Ashley Madison. So you're going to vote this way from now on, or we're going to tell your wife, or we're going to leak it, or we're going to one of a million things.
Right. Put it on Twitter,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Wow. That's crazy stuff. And that's why I love your article that you wrote about. Why is curtailing Chinese technological influence so important? And I know for those of you, you got to see this article. It's amazing. I mean, you'll see it on the video right here. But if you look down, you'll see the Great Firewall. I love this 23 and G, which is so clever.
So that
can we talk about that? Let's go break it down
Please.
here, because what it starts off is no one who has studied the influence of TikTok in any serious way would deny how dangerous the platform is. Yet, there was very little rejoicing when the Restrict Act was proposed last month, which would have granted the federal government new and sweeping powers to curtail online content and speech. While the proposed law now seems rightly destined to fail in Congress, the need to oppose the growing influence of the Chinese Communist Party, who indirectly control TikTok to devastating effect across the world and at home, has never been more important. I love that. And we start off with the Great Firewall. So let's talk about this. What exactly is this Great Firewall?
Can I hit one point before we hit the Great
Please.
Firewall? I want to just say, no offense to our older audience members, this is the kind of stuff, this is why it is so important to have young people in Congress, younger individuals like Congressman D'Esposito, who I know was your first guest.
Yeah.
Congressman
It's my boy.
Barbarino. I know. And to have people like that in Congress who understand this stuff, because you have so many older members of Congress, and that's how you get things like the Restrict Act that are overbroad and are going to do more harm than good. You need young, intelligent people. Maybe you. I don't just saying. There's Senate seats available. There's all types of things. I'm just saying we need people in government who understand how these things work so that we can get laws that actually work.
Right, and that's the narrow tailoring that you want to look for
Precisely.
in terms of when you're constructing and crafting legislation to make it
Precisely.
targeted towards the purpose that you're trying to deter.
Exactly.
So let's see this Great Firewall now.
Oh, the Great Firewall.
What is I love your subheadings in this. He's got, for those of you guys see this, the Great Firewall, 23 and G, Wolf War diplomacy. It's so great. I love it. The not so secret police.
Yes.
I love it.
Most of those I came up with. Some of them I didn't. I usually come up with the artwork. The artwork on that article, I wish I could take credit for. I found it. I actually linked to the artist. So he
Good.
gets
Give him
credit.
some credit.
Exactly.
Give him a shout out.
Yeah, I'm never going to steal anyone. That's intellectual property. I'm not a member of the Chinese Communist Party.
You're not a
If I
communist. It's
was,
great.
Right, I would steal their. All right. So the Great Firewall refers to a series of legislation and technological innovations in China meant to control information that gets to their people. Okay? So, for example, Try looking up Tiananmen Square in China.
Can't do it?
Can't do it.
No way.
Cannot do it. You know what you find?
What?
Directions to Tiananmen Square.
No shit.
Tank Man, who we still don't know who he is.
Yep.
Tank Man, if you're out there, we're looking for you.
Tank Man, we got you.
We got you, Tank Man. Get here to the LiPetri show. He'll interview.
Yeah.
No, but like Tank Man, all that stuff, you're never finding any of that.
Wow.
You're not finding that on Chinese
See,
services.
people don't realize that in the United States because they're so used to just having that
Right.
unfiltered, unfettered access.
Right.
But they don't actually understand what this government is doing to censor and restrict their audience from seeing the truth.
Right. I truly believe, in my heart believe that the Chinese public actually knew what was happening to and around them. They would have revolted already. Hong Kong would have spread. For those of you who don't know, last year, I think it was early last year, they took away almost all the liberties of Hong Kong that Hong Kong has enjoyed for decades and decades now. They took it all away. Do you think mainland China knew anything about that? Absolutely not. It's all pulled from the search engines. It's all pulled from all that. And that's part of it, too, going to the policy aspect. To operate in China as a company, doesn't matter if you're American, Canadian, pick it, you need to adhere to what their censors say. So you might get to Google, but you're not getting the same Google results Americans get. Wow. You might get, I'll go to another example, hot topic, Disney. We hear about this all the time. A movie comes out in America, and then there's a Chinese cut. And the Chinese cut will be different. There will be certain social things that are cut right out because they don't want their public seeing that.
Right. Did they do something with, they just did something with Top Gun, right? They had a problem with, they didn't show Top Gun.
Yes.
Because Top Gun was pro-American, and then the Maverick was wearing something on his jacket. I forgot what it was. I think it might have been the Taiwanese flag.
It probably was, yeah.
And they didn't want to show it.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all. I believe it was Black Adam. I could be wrong, but I believe it was Black Adam that they would not allow open in China because the hero is ostensibly Muslim. I don't think it's ever actually stated, but the hero is ostensibly Muslim. Again, for those of you who don't know, Chinese, not big fans of faith. The Chinese government, not big fans of faith, specifically Muslims. They're putting them in internment camps, concentration camps right now. So they don't want anything with that. So Black Adam doesn't open there. And I know what a lot of people are thinking. Well, what does it matter if things aren't opening in the Chinese market or not? Chinese economy is the second biggest on the planet. That money that comes from their movie sales and their video game sales and all that stuff, our companies have come to depend on it to meet their revenue goals each year. Wow. So if you don't adhere to the Chinese censorships, you're not getting this material. You're not hitting your markers, which means you'll lose your job. It's a terrible situation.
Wow, they're leveraging their population and market to get what they want.
Exactly. So it's legislation and it's technological, and they've built this wall around their public to keep them from being able to access the larger world. If we've seen one thing since World War II, it's that Western liberal democracy, and again, I'm talking like the founding. I'm talking the ideas of the Enlightenment and the American founding are the most powerful ideas in the history of this planet. When a public gets a taste for it, they can't get enough. The idea, I can fire these people? That's wonderful. I'd love to fire these people. And the idea is spread and spread and spread. So the Chinese have to keep it bottled up, especially with their middle class growing.
Absolutely.
They can't allow these people to understand how bad they actually have it, because if they do, it'll collapse.
Especially now with the aging population that China's seeing over the next forthcoming decade.
Oh my God,
they're going to be in some serious trouble.
We could do a whole other episode on the population crunch that's coming, because it's bad.
Oh, it's going to be.
It's terrible.
And I can't wait to I'm going to have the popcorn. I'm having popcorn ready. It's going to be exciting. So we have that with the great. Now you talk about, and this is something that I'm really glad you brought up, 23 and G. Which is so brilliant again.
I'm glad you like that.
Because that's something that I've always been telling people is when they tell me about Ancestry.com, 23andMe.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, why do I want to give my blood, my DNA to a private corporation?
Right.
I mean, have you not seen enough Resident Evil movies to know? Yes. But in truth, it really is why am I giving my blood type and genes to a private corporation to do whatever with it?
Including give it to our government.
And that's so now people would then say, is Ancestry.com and 23andMe, are they in China? Or is this a company that's in China?
No, so I don't believe they are. What happened with them was, I forget the guy's name just right now. You have the article of, is it Kevin Kidman or Ken Kidman? Is it
Kenneth Kidd.
Kenneth Kidd,
Yale
I knew it.
geneticist
Yes.
Kenneth Kidd.
I strongly suggest anybody look up that Planet Money episode on Kenneth Kidd.
Yeah, it's an MP. It's the
NPR.
public money.
Planet Money. I miswrote it earlier.
Okay,
I definitely did.
So 2019 NPR Planet Money podcast stuck in China's panopticon.
I have no idea how to pronounce it either.
Okay.
It basically means a prison that's designed in a circle so that you can always see what everybody's doing inside it. There's nowhere to hide. That's what that term means.
Wow.
So
I've really never heard of that word in my life.
so that was the first time I heard it too.
Yeah.
And I still can't say it, so there you go. And I listen to the podcast. So he was one of these guys who was developing the technology that is now in Ancestry.
Kenneth Kidd is.
Yes,
Okay.
23andMe and all this stuff, which basically says there's genetic markers from where people have been.
Okay.
Which I can argue about all day about whether or not the stuff actually works or anything like that, because there's a huge debate on it, because it's like, when? Like my family is all Italian, but my grandfather's last name is French, and he was in an area of Italy that was controlled by Napoleon's brother. So is he French? Is he Italian? Like, what year are we going to? But that's not the point for now.
Okay.
The point is, Kenneth needs test subjects, and he needs blood, and he needs all these things to make his research work.
Okay.
Right? So the Chinese government says, oh, we got people. We got blood. We got money. Come on over, and we'll help you develop that tech. Seems harmless enough, right? It's genealogy tech. It's helping us as a species understand ourselves. And if that's all it was, that would be great. If we only research atomic power to power things, that would have been wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's not what we did.
No, we used some nuclear work for something else.
Yeah, we had to.
Yep.
Because if we didn't, the Nazis would.
Yep.
Well, here it went the other way. We were helping develop this, what we thought was fun little technology that would help with diseases and all these things. And the Chinese turned around and goes, you know what this would be great for? Identifying, and I'm going to use air quotes, genetic Muslims, or pick your minority population.
Really?
And now they use this as part of, again, this is part of the firewall. Voice, blood, hair samples, all this stuff. And they identify whether or not someone is a possible dissident or not in China. And if you listen to that episode on NPR, you can't watch it. It's not like this high quality show where you can watch or listen. It's not. The beginning of it is with the professor, and the back half is with I believe he is Muslim. I could be mistaken. He went back to China. He's a student here. He went back to China to visit family. He got there. They held him at the airport. They took his blood. They made him do voice recordings and stuff like that, because they have all these listening devices around. And if you say something against the government and they catch it, they're going to match it to that voice recording from that airport that day, and they're going to hold him.
Wow.
And they wouldn't let him leave China for a while. Eventually, he got out, and he got to come back to the United States. And now he's like, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I can't
Why
go
would
back
you?
to my yeah,
I
I
could-
can't. And so that's another example. The Chinese abusing technology to create a prison around their people. And one of the reasons a lot of people I talk to about this stuff is like, well, why should we really be worried about the Chinese? Yeah, they'll collapse under communism eventually. Eventually, all the bad guys always lose eventually. They do a lot of damage before eventually comes around.
Yeah.
And if China replaces us as the top dog on the block, I use that analogy at the end of the article. I feel like I'm beating into the ground this week, but it's true. If you're not the biggest kid on the block, someone else is.
Mm-hmm.
And if America is not the big guy on the block, it's going to be the Chinese. And if it becomes the Chinese, there's a lot of countries on this planet that don't have our values and don't have our goals and don't have our history. But at least they pretend to. At least they keep up appearances and try to give the semblance of freedom of religion, freedom of speech. Imagine if they didn't even have to pretend anymore, because the Chinese don't care. They're just going to mimic the Chinese. People all around this planet will be exterminated, imprisoned. The quality of life will drop so terribly. It will be like nothing we've ever seen.
And you're seeing that slowly now, where China is starting to invade other geographic regions such as Africa, Afghanistan,
Yes,
actually,
100%.
and though they're starting to, and even South America, they're
Right.
starting to creep into in order to control and try to push their propaganda and their
Yeah.
ideas, and also control the raw materials and whatnot that the United States may rely on in order for the United States to be beholden to China in those
Precisely.
respects.
Now, I just want to build on that thought too.
Yes.
So full disclosure for the audience, I'm a conservative. I'm just going to get it out there because I want to be clear. When I write this stuff, I try to keep it down the middle. I try to keep it down the pipe.
I don't think anything that you're writing, that's why I wanted to have you on, is ever about political. It's more about this is what is, the facts.
Right. Well, this next thing I'm going to say might go one way or the other. That's why.
Okay.
So that's why I key this up. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, negotiated by the Obama administration, killed by the Trump administration.
Okay.
I'm not even going to talk about the merits of it. I'm not even going to say like, oh yeah, Obama good, Orange Man bad. Like I'm not doing any of that.
You're not doing OMB, Orange Man bad?
Yeah, no, I'm not at all, not at all. And I'll defend him in a minute as we go down the article, because I know someone's out there like he called him the Orange Man. How dare he? No,
Can't believe that.
Right. If we're not the ones making deals with these countries, if we're not the ones that the Asian countries are turning to for partnerships, they're going to go to the Chinese, and we don't want that. We don't want that at all. So that's why I think it is important for us to be assertive on the world stage.
Yeah, I remember.
And have our spot.
I totally agree with that because I was actually last year I went to Israel for the World Summit on Counterterrorism, and during that time I met someone from Mongolia. And I was talking with the Mongolian government, and they were saying to them how China is controlling with their energy and food imports.
Yeah.
So they're just like,
Yeah.
if things go wrong, China's got us in a bind.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
to put it frank, China's got us by the balls.
Yeah.
And we can't
absolutely.
we can't be moving anywhere else. And the fact that he was just adamant saying it felt so emasculating for me as an American. I was like, nah, no one's ever got it. Like that's not
No.
American ideals would never succumb to that even thought process where someone else has got us by the balls. Like no, we're our own. We're our own man here.
We got this.
Yeah, so like no one's control. But to hear that, I was just like, oh man, that hurts. That hurts my heart there.
I do believe if it ever came down to it, and it was us versus the Chinese, and I pray to God there's never an actual hot war, we'll win eventually because we're Americans. We'll fight to the. You're gonna have to wipe the whole continent out to take us out.
It's one of those things.
But it's the cost,
right?
Before you
how
get
much?
there.
Yeah,
right.
I totally agree with that. And we always, I mean, we saw it really when it came point. Everybody says this, right? Is 9/11 that moment? The 9/12.
Yeah.
We were never more American. Everyone, we were so
100%.
united. Don't you dare touch this family, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, the United States is a family. And the minute you creep into this family and harm us, we put our differences aside and we just destroy you.
Here's my nerd moment for the day.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic comic book called Ex Machina by a writer named Brian.
Oh,
K.
I've heard of
Vaughan.
that, but I have no idea what it's about.
It's fantastic. It's like the one superhero on the planet. He can talk to technology.
Oh, that's a superhero?
Not really. It's political.
Oh.
He becomes the mayor of New York City after 9/11.
Oh.
Right. And at the end of the book, spoilers. I don't know what category.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's watching Ex Machina on
It's
here.
fine. Well, no, it's you have to read it. So
Oh,
I think that really narrows
definitely
it down.
not.
But there's a fantastic point at the end where he announces they're going to rebuild the World Trade Center.
Okay.
And he has a fantastic line. He goes, "You can knock Americans down, but you sure as hell can't keep us there." And I love that line. I think there's nothing more American than that line. Yeah, you can hit us to the ground.
We're bouncing back, baby.
Not going to matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what did we do? I mean, literally, we built Freedom Tower.
Yeah, exactly.
And we said we're going to go bigger.
Right, exactly.
So we're going higher than than the World Trade Center,
Exactly.
just to send a message.
That was actually the day. I don't want to go off too much on the rails here, but that was the day I was like, I'm getting into law. I'm getting into politics.
Really?
Yeah, my father was down there. My father was down there on 9/11. He worked across the street at Oppenheimer Tower. I'm not going to go too off on it. He came home that day.
That's great.
Covered in stuff, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't know how bad it was until 2019 when he got kidney cancer. We thought he got away.
I was going to ask you about that. He had a 9/11 related illness?
Yeah, he's still fighting it to this day. But my father, again, he's American. You could knock him down. You ain't keeping him there.
Wow.
And he just keeps getting up. And that's what, again, this is one of the reasons this kind of stuff is so important to me, because I love this country and I want it to have the best information possible. That's why I'm so excited to be here with you today. And
we're going social media at law for the people
That's
to
right.
find the truth.
Social media law.
Yeah, to find that truth. And you go into it now, this Wolf War diplomacy.
Yes.
What is that?
So I wish I could take credit for that ridiculous subheading,
sick
but
name.
I can't. It's a Chinese action movie.
No way.
Yes.
Wolf War diplomacy.
Yeah, it's actually Wolf War. I think it's actually Wolf War 2, which
Okay.
makes it even better.
Okay.
But that is the title for the Xi Jinping administration's policy, their diplomatic strategy for the world. So basically since Nixon opened up China, their policy is be nice. Just be nice to everybody. We'll grow our economy. We'll win over time. People will love us. Just be nice.
That's like the 100-year marathon mentality, right?
Exactly that. Xi Jinping goes the other way. He shows up and goes, no, we're going to get aggressive. We're going to be more aggressive with stealing technology. We're going to be more aggressive at the UN, pushing back on America, pushing back on American diplomats, pushing back on American messaging. And so that's what you see, especially the last couple of years since he got his, I think it's his third term.
Yeah.
People are like, why does it seem like overnight the Chinese got angrier? It's like, well, he just made probably the biggest power move since the country went communist. He had the former president escorted out of the General Assembly. He had him brought in.
I remember that.
Sat next to him in a place of power. And then he had security come over and escort him out, and he just looked away.
In front of everybody.
Right.
Well,
He has never felt more powerful than he does now. So Wolf for Diplomacy, it's a stupid action movie in China. I really kind of want to watch it. And it's basically the idea that they're going to get aggressive with us and everybody else, and they're going to force their way into global
until
dominance.
somebody pushes back.
Well, I mean,
and they're just banking on the fact that nobody will.
Precisely that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that intertwine with social media?
So it's all of it. That's the thing.
This is all part of it?
Right. It's all one big collective strategy, right? So you steal tech, so you become the dominant tech sector. You expand into places like Africa and South America so that these countries are beholden to you as well. You use social media to influence the opinions of people in these countries and in all the Western democracies also into believing that their day is done, that their societies are decadent, that they're falling apart, and that we're the future. And it's a multi-pronged strategy of asserting dominance.
Wow. And that's going to be using the social media to act as an agent of propaganda.
Precisely that. And to get
influence.
Information to spy on us.
Right.
To get information to force others to spy on us, industrial espionage, government espionage.
Yeah, we're going to get to the espionage a little bit because I want to talk about specifically communication systems and stealing intellectual property.
Yes.
So you speak about both of these, and for example, in Africa, the Chinese are seeking to grow their influence by promising expansive public works projects and investments. And meanwhile, in both cases, their outward actions are a smokescreen for spying on these governments, corporations, and individuals alike to grow their own power. So that's like with the African Union, what is their goal?
Oh my God! So this is where I defend Trump, right? This is my President Trump gets his flowers moment.
Okay.
Huawei is their communications company, right? It's like their AT&T or whatever. Pick your analogy.
Yeah,
right?
Verizon. Whatever.
Right.
Okay.
They wanted to come here and start building cell phone towers and do all this stuff. And Trump went, no.
Yeah.
You know, like
Wrong.
Not going to do it. Lose.
Yeah, losers. Get out.
Right, get out of here. Right? And so he doesn't let them get into our systems. He doesn't let them get here. Come to find out that Huawei worldwide is using their technology, their servers, to spy on people. So, for example, the African Union, right? Chinese contractors come in real cheap. We'll build your building for you. No problem, guys. Oh, it's great. We love cheap. Who doesn't love cheap? So they build the building. We'll give you the servers, Huawei. They're going to be great. We'll undercut every other seller who offers to you. Great. Let's do it. Comes out, they're spying on every country at the African Union. Everything that's going through those servers, all that information
collecting.
It's going right on back to the Chinese government. And now they can use that to influence, control, extort African leaders to get themselves more contracts, more infrastructure, more.
Wow, for control. Because I know for specifically, like, for example, is Democratic Republic of Congo, 70% of the lithium worldwide is right there.
Right.
And now they're at the center of that to control it.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
It is. It's frightening.
They got the Panama Canal.
I didn't even know about that with Huawei.
Yeah. Huawei is probably, again, it's one of the most dangerous tools in their arsenal. Huawei was going to be part of the project outside of D.C., where they were going to build this like garden, basically, this really nice garden area, and we're going to do all this stuff, and it'll be pretty, and there'll be buildings, and you're going to love it. You guys are going to love it. And people in D.C. were like, oh, great, free park. I love a free park. FBI comes in and is like, actually, they'll be able to spy on all of our communications. They'll pluck that stuff right out of the air. They might be able to interfere with our nuclear capabilities and our nuclear messaging. And for the record, again, I'm just one guy with a blog. This isn't just me. You go through my articles, you click the sites, they'll take you. NPR. I'm just
You got those
synthesizing.
citations, baby.
I do.
That's
it's
the attorney
lawyer
in you,
of it.
yeah.
Exactly. It's the lawyer of it.
Footnote.
Exactly. Believe me, I wanted to do footnotes, but then it ruins your algorithm. See, good algorithm makes people see me. I don't want to ruin that, so I hide it in the links. But yeah, so they could steal our data, use our data. Huawei, it happened in Australia. That was another thing. I didn't even get to write about this one yet. This one's in the hopper. That during COVID, the Chinese. This is part of not just technological superiority, but the Wolf War diplomacy. They said to Australia, "Yeah, we'll give you more oxygen machines. We'll give you more all the medical tech you need. We'll give it to you, no problem. We're right here, right up the block. We'll give it to you. You just got to make sure you announce in public that the Chinese government's helping you out."
Wow.
And again, it's propaganda. Now, it's true. I'm not saying it wouldn't be true if they gave them more. Just pick your poison, really. And if you're going with the Chinese vaccine, it is poison.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your poison. It would be true that they would be helping. But it's propaganda, and it's convincing another Western democracy, those communists, they really got it together. And it just builds and builds and builds. And their hope is that it builds to a critical mass where they become number one.
Wow. That's going to be the goal and that's where they're stealing this intellectual property based off of that.
Yeah.
And then you speak about, and we talked about this with espionage, the Chinese espionage I don't know if people really realize that.
No.
And just to talk again, I brought it up about how the New York City caught this police station that was set up as a secret police station for Chinese to arrest and seize Chinese defectors and those who are speaking out, that were Chinese citizens speaking out against the Chinese government.
Right.
And these two individuals were caught, and they're being prosecuted currently. But can we expand on that? How this TikTok and social media and the internet as a whole, how China is weaponizing these what quote unquote benign apps that are really malicious in nature and are being used to gather this data of American citizens, to capture also biometrics, right? Because now all your photos and videos, that is all being captured and then reported back to China, correct?
Yeah, everything's going into TikTok, and that's where, again, 13 places. We don't know where it's all going.
13 places of what?
That's horrifying.
And including the Chinese government.
Right. Well, it could all be the Chinese government.
We
have no idea where TikTok is sending
and they'll
their
never,
data.
and we can't, and currently as it stands, there's no restrictions.
No. Right now, there is nothing stopping TikTok from doing whatever they want. And I want to put this in context too. Let's put this Chinese secret police thing in context, because again, I talk to a lot of people and I get comments and I get emails. It's like, oh well, okay, so you don't think we have spies in other countries? You know what?
Of course we
probably do.
Well, we had the leaked war document showed that we do.
Exactly. We got people training soldiers in other places. Who knows what we got people doing?
Yeah,
I don't deny any of it, but you know what? I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe we're the good guys. And if you don't think the Chinese are capable, forget. Let's put their own citizens aside for a second. Let's put their citizens aside. Saudi Arabia, they're an ally. Now we can debate all day why they're an ally. Are they really an ally? We can go back. Saudi Arabia is an ally on paper. They grabbed a citizen of another country off the street, he went into the embassy to get his papers. They dragged him into a back room. They drugged him. He died. They chopped him up with a chainsaw. They put him in bags, and they sent him back on a private plane. If you don't think the Chinese are capable of doing the same thing, you're naive beyond measure.
That is crazy.
So think about it. Right now, let's say they actually were sticking to Chinese dissidents. All right, they're looking at if you're from New York, there are these Chinese, like China before the communist dance show. I don't know if you've seen all the feathers and all the things. They're all over New York City trying to sell things.
At the Shen Yu?
Yes, that's
Oh
it.
my God.
China before communism, and it's beautiful, and they got feathers, and it's
I don't know who's ever seen that.
I know who definitely loves it. People who hate the Chinese Communist Party. I know that, right? So let's put them aside for a minute, though. Let's say I catch on in China. I become big in China, right? People using VPNs, and they can read my blog, and they see this show, and I become big in China. And then I go to New York City to catch Hamilton, because I love me some good musical theater.
Great musical theater.
Great musical theater.
Hamilton was exceptional.
That's fantastic.
So good.
Right. I'm walking out of the theater, I'm humming along, it's quiet uptown. Like I'm getting up there, and all of a sudden I'm in the back of a van.
Yep.
And then I'm in a secret police station. And then the next thing you know, my new baby on the way this June never has a dad because I wake up at a Chinese concentration camp.
Wow. Way to just mire a really great thing.
I know, right?
We're surrounded by a terrible story. Congratulations, but at the same time.
My pleasure.
Wow.
I wanted to get the emotional impact across of an American citizen just disappearing. As it is, people disappear. We don't know what happens to them, right? We have no idea.
And now this secret police that's around can just capture you because you're building awareness within China.
Right. Next thing you know, all they got to do is get you from the secret police headquarters in downtown Manhattan to the Chinese embassy. Wow. Once you're inside, no one can do anything.
Yeah. So these quasi secret, not so secret police stations.
Secret police here, Australia, Canada. They've caught him in.
That's all I want to know. Where? Yeah, that's where else they're all over in all these different Western democracies.
Yes.
Canada, Australia.
Those are the three I know about. Those are the three we've seen reporting on so far. But you got to believe they're everywhere else.
It's like the CIA black sites back in the mid-2000s.
Exactly. Yeah, in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, but again, we're the good guys.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I do believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that our people are doing the best they can for the
good of the world.
Right, the good of the world.
As opposed to these guys who are looking to target based on they're government hitmen.
Right.
Essentially, which is scary to say
Operating
that's
with impunity.
And that's what's scary to know that this is really happening. And I think for people now who are listening to be aware of what's around us, specifically right here in New York State and throughout our entire country, throughout this entire world. So now with this Restrict Act, next steps, where do we go? This Restrict Act is overbroad, it's vague. Yeah. And what does it do? Does it empower? What does it in essence do? Can you break it down?
In essence, it gives the Commerce Secretary, along with the Advice and Counsel, I'm going to really truncate it.
Yeah, of course.
Of all these other cabinet level positions, gives the Commerce Secretary the ability to shut down, quote unquote, transactions between foreign adversaries and their agents and Americans.
What's wrong with that on its face?
On its face, I mean, if you think about it just in the broadest of terms, foreign adversaries, adversary means bad. Who's the adversary, though?
So it's too subjective.
Right. So they give examples, right? They mention Russia, North Korea, Iran, and that's fine. But they don't limit it to that.
Got
and the second thing is there's no check on this. Right, so the way the law is written as now, the act. It's not a law.
Yeah, the act.
It never will be. We all saw Schoolhouse Rock. We know what we're dealing with here. The way it is written, and I encourage your audience, just picture the party you hate in power. Just whatever that is, picture the people you hate. It gives the Commerce Secretary the ability to say, well, this platform is being used by our adversaries to affect America, democracy, our markets, our infrastructure, and it goes on a whole list. So let me give you some examples of some ways it could go, right? We know TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. TikTok, Chinese adversary, bad. China using TikTok to influence Americans and our voting patterns. Okay, fine. It's banned. Didn't we just have 8 years of the Russians used Twitter and Facebook to affect an election? So
Russian propaganda.
If you read the actual literal text of the law, the Commerce Secretary could shut down Twitter and could shut down Facebook.
And now with Elon Musk and Twitter, that would be given more, depending on...
Yeah, poor Elon.
Yep.
He would only have $2 billion instead of $3 billion. But I'll go a step further. Let's take it out of social media because they don't limit it to social media, right? Oh. Let's go and we're going to tie it into the intellectual property thing. Amazon. Anyone who's ever gone on Amazon will notice that there is the product you're looking for and 15 knockoffs.
Yeah, that happened. We had a guest on LifeVac, which says they get knockoffs all the time from China.
Exactly. So what is happening there, when you think about it, is a foreign adversary is using a platform to create transactions to undermine the American economy. Under the strictest reading of the Restrict Act, you could shut down Amazon. And I could make this argument for any platform. And I know what some people are going to say. They're going to be like, well, Amazon's an American company, Google's an American company, Facebook, Twitter. Okay, fine. If you don't think that these companies have at least one foreign investor so that the federal government could tie it to it and go, no,
of course,
foreign influence,
Yep.
we're out. I don't know. Again, you're beyond naive. This is the same federal government. Again, I'm not one party or the other. I'm going the longest possible stretch, right? That has been using the Commerce Clause, which is supposed to do interstate commerce, to regulate everything that happens in this country because, well, you know, the napkins in your diner were developed in Utah and you're in Texas. So
and then it's shipped across. And
right.
There you go.
So now we get to decide everything that happens in your diner.
Right.
I mean, this is what happens. Again, government overreach. When you have a law this broad, crazy stuff's about to happen.
So how do we fix that? Do we craft it by simply just targeting, saying this is to influence, this is to restrict China? Like that's like any government that is, or any company that is Chinese corporation.
Right. So let's accept right off the bat that no matter what we do, it's going to the Supremes. All right. No
of course,
what
going
we
to
do,
SCOTUS.
We're showing up in front of the nine.
Yep.
Okay. I would argue the best way to do it is just to straight up outlaw TikTok.
That's it. Just right. We're targeting at TikTok. This is what it is.
This company, this parent company, this product, it's gone. It's over. It's done.
Because also in how the Restrict Act, according to what you're saying, and if it's how it's written, then doesn't that mean it's also the executive branch is susceptible to then lobbying?
Yeah, of course.
Right, because then you just have Chinese lobbyists just crushing it over there and telling the president of the United States, don't tell your commerce secretary to do this.
Yes.
And if they get that influence or those around him or her, then we're in trouble.
Right, and it could cut the other way too.
Right.
I mean, and you let's not forget like how many social media platforms are used worldwide to have influence. Like WhatsApp here, not that big. People use it, but
WhatsApp is huge in China.
South America.
Yeah,
you know,
that's big encryption.
Huge. What happens when one of our allies turns around and goes, I'll use Saudi Arabia again. They're using WhatsApp to undermine your commercial interests in our country. All right, let's shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's susceptible to government overreach. And there are people who will say you can't just outlaw a product. Yes, I can.
Yeah, why not?
Yes, I absolutely can.
We do it all the time.
We've done it every year as long as I've been alive.
New York State just did it millions of times for environmental toxic chemicals that are polluting our water, quote unquote. You can't be using that.
Exactly.
That's the same thing.
And we've had, how many times in the history of this country have we been like, you know what? No, steel stays here. Or, no, we're keeping the grain.
Yep.
Like, we do that when we are faced with an adversary, actual and absolute war. And that's what this could lead to. Right now, the Chinese are undergoing what's called decoupling, right? Where they're trying to literally split their country off and their economy off from us so that they could be insular. The Russians tried to do this. Putin tried to do this for 20 years. The idea being that he wanted to insulate himself from economic sanctions so that if his economy wasn't tied with the rest of the world, then we couldn't hurt him. Didn't work. His economy's not big enough. They're really tiny, really weak, really susceptible to sanctions because the Russians don't trust their own banks and hide their money in Western, democracies.
Yep.
China, a little bit more restrictive, right, with their people. There's a lot. It's a lot. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to split their economy off from ours. And as that gets more and more likely, as they become more and more successful at that, if they are, the possibility of a war becomes more and more,
likely.
Likely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's, of course, where just when you can operate independently of others,
right,
then you could obviously engage with others in a hostile way. So it just makes sense, right? That comes down to just normal power struggles and leveraging and influence. I think this has been, Pete, you have been wonderful and amazing, and this has been so.
I learned from you.
Educate. Please stop it.
It's charismatic. I had to bring my A game today.
This has been great. I mean, I think a lot of our listeners, our viewers, are going to really be interested and learn a lot. So I appreciate it immensely.
My pleasure.
Those of you, again, social media @law.com.
That's it.
That's what it is. Follow you on Instagram. Follow him on Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram. Not TikTok.
Never TikTok. Never
But
in a million years.
thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate it. Look forward to having you on in the future.
If you see me on TikTok, I've been compromised.
It isn't me.
No, it's an AI version of me.
Yeah,
We could do AI.
We'll do
next time.
AI. Till next time, buddy. Thank you.